Friday, 30 students, 7 leaders departed for Colorado in 3 vans. On late Saturday night, 2 vans and 2 rental cars arrived in Colorado Springs. Yes, we had some difficulties along the way. I should have known when in our very first gas stop, a truck driver named Truck Driver Mike, that's all I got, came up to me and said, "Hey, are you guys a church group?" And then he handed me a $100 bill and told me to use it for something for the kids. Interestingly, we probably used that $100 quite a few times with some of our problems, but it was incredible to be on the receiving end of that and to see the kids' reaction to that when they learned about it and to watch them all wave Trucker Mike away as he drove off past us as we were still gassing up. But God took great care of us. In spite of snapped bolts that held the alternator on, because I know some of you guys were wondering what happened, apparently it sent the serpentine melt snapping around in there, and it hit a bunch of stings, so that all had to get repaired. During all that time, how long were we kind of out of commission? 4 or 5 hours, 5 hours? During that whole time, kids did great, kept a great attitude, went to a park, climbed on tanks, did other things. The leaders became instant problem solvers for us, and the tow truck driver even chose to way undercharge us, and then drove us to the best repair place in York, Nebraska. If you're ever there, York, Nebraska, I've got the name of a repair place that they are awesome. It's not very big, and let's face it, I mean, who goes to vacation in Nebraska, right? So, Penners in York, Nebraska, they are the place. They took great care of us. Literally, the tow truck guy dropped the van, and they had a guy instantly working on it to see if they could just throw a belt on and we could be on our way. It soon became obvious that wasn't going to happen, but Penners, actually, they did a great job helping us find a place that rented vehicles, and we got on our way. So they did a great job. So shout out to Penners. That just went on Facebook. Go Penners. As busy as they were, though, they actually don't need a whole lot more work. We continued on in our new vehicles, and we arrived about 4 hours later than planned, but were able to stay on our planned schedule for the rest of the trip. However, that meant that we pulled into our campground in Colorado in the dark. And so it was really fun in the morning to see the kids walk out and go, "Oh, mountains." And so that was kind of cool because we drove in the dark and they didn't really get to see them. Now let me tell you, this trip's theme was planned about 9 months ago, and the theme was, "Often the difficult path is the right path." And I'm going to let you know that after that, I'm never going to use a theme like that ever again because of some of the difficulties we had, because a lot of you know about the bus problems. What you don't know is an hour from home last night, we had a flat tire. So some of us got in here at 9, I got home at 10 last night. So yeah, we had some issues. But in the midst of all of that, let me tell you, God took good care of us. We had van problems. We had rain on the mountain. We had one rafting guide who was very new and hit every rock on the river, I heard. We had a tire blow last night at 56 minutes from home, and yet through all those things, these students persevered, had great attitudes, and they did difficult things. Sunday morning, we're out at KOA in Colorado Springs. We challenged these kids to consider that God often asks his people to do difficult things for him. And if we live a life always seeking comfort, we might not say yes to that moment when God asks us to do something difficult. So that was kind of the theme we were going to take for the week. And we went and then hiked Garden of the Gods. And it was such an amazing place to visit and just see God's creativity. I mean, after all, we had just traveled through Nebraska. You guys have been through Nebraska? It's a cornfield, one big cornfield. He did not make one style of land. God gave us many different types to travel through, and we were able to visit several of them. We even made it to Kansas, but that was on the way home. That comes later. We are not in Kansas anymore, and we'll move right on after that. Let me bring up some students for you guys to hear from. Jacob, Tori, Liberty, Calvin, Brandon, Sam, Kendra, and Clark. Come on up. I'm going to hear from you guys. They're going to share their name with you, and then just a little bit about their experience on this trip. Tori, you going to go first? Start us off?
Yeah, I guess. Hi, guys. Is this on? Oh, okay. I'm Tori, and I think my favorite part of the trip is just connecting with all of the students more since this is my last trip as a student, I connected with all the ninth grader boys. Yes, they will kill me for saying ninth graders, but they were ninth graders on this trip. Anyways, yeah, so I think just connecting with all these students was the most fun I had. Making stronger connections and new connections was pretty fun. And I do have advice for you guys. Don't eat sushi at a buffet. It is in a bush right now in Colorado, so yeah.
Wise words.
Hi, my name is Jacob Haddock, and my favorite part of the trip was just being able to go up that mountain and see the beautiful views in Colorado.
Sorry, Tori. I really encouraged her to try sushi because it's delicious.
It's your fault.
It's my fault. It is.
It was good, but not going up.
Yeah. So I'm Kendra. I went as the leader, and I wrote some stuff down because apparently I get emotional for a couple nights ago. Doing hard things was our theme this week, obviously. And I came along as a leader, and as a leader, you're supposed to lead. But while up the mountain, I did not do that so well. Let's just say it was really hard for me. So the combination of being 45 and never having done anything like that before, and then this little thing called oxygen, it gets sparse. Like the higher you go, it proved to be a very large obstacle for me. It really did. I knew that I needed to push through though. To be a good example of perseverance for the kids. So my top was just above the tree line, and that was a big accomplishment for me personally. And now I know why there are so many songs written about mountains, poems and songs and those mountaintop experiences, because that was. I can't even put into words. It was amazing. And I so enjoyed hanging out with your teens. Some of you might think I'm weird, but I really do love teenagers. I really do. They're so much fun. I love getting to know their unique personalities, and I know some of you already, but I love getting and I love seeing God clearly work in their lives this week. And parents, you should be really proud of these kids. They're so great. And I wanted to say, Mark and Amy Douglas, they are just amazing people. Amy, you are just, she's just, I'll use the word again, amazing. She's an amazing human. She encouraged me so much along the way and lifted me up literally and figuratively, like she really did. I couldn't have done it without her. And so her and Mark put in so much time and effort, and people don't maybe see behind the scenes, but oh my word. So much time and effort into planning this trip. They have such a love for the kids and in being intentional about making an impact on their lives, with hopes that they carry these experiences into their futures, so that when life does get hard, that hopefully these kids can recall that one time they hiked a mountain and overcame that hard thing.
Okay, so my name is Liberty, and I think my favorite part was like the overall climb, because there was parts where I kind of wanted to give up, but then Luke kind of stuck by me and made me get up and keep climbing. And then when I got to the top, we were standing inside a cloud and you couldn't see anything, but then the sun kind of came through and you could just see all all the views. And I just you can take pictures of that, but unless you're looking at it, it's just not the same. And that was to me my favorite part.
My name is Kelvin Montgomery, and my favorite part was probably being in the clouds at the top of the mountain.
My name is Sam Montgomery. My favorite part was probably being paddle captains on the Whitewater River after Thomas McCullough.
He had no dry spot on him, just so you know.
My name is Brandon McFerrin, and my favorite part was hiking up the mountain and seeing all the views and being able to go through a cloud.
I'm Clark Cantola, and I'm just reminded of just how much we take even the area we live in for granted. People travel thousands of miles to go out there and see the views, and we were talking, and people travel hundreds or 1,000 miles to come to the Great Lakes. And it's so easy to take that for granted. The other one is when climbing the mountain, the frailty and brevity of life, and we think we accomplished great things, and we made it about 1,000 feet short, I think. And then you look and you see this mammoth rock up above and the little dots of people, other groups who have made it up there. And for that was just very amazing to me. The other one is when we were at Garden of the Gods, we talked to a park ranger. He's just very helpful and informative, but he was talking about a type of bird that we couldn't climb a certain area because they were up, some of the rare birds were up in the rocks, and they said, well, they haven't evolved yet of how to fly, and they said they can't live on the ground because they can't actually fly from the ground. They actually have to fall. So they're up in these rocks, and I was like, well, or God created them that way, you know, and for them, I think of a small bird to go out and it has to fall out of the nest. That's like a faith step, and then it flies. And then what are some things that I'm afraid to do that, you know what, I need to take that faith step, and then God's going to take care of the next step. So that was just quite amazing to me.
Let's give him a hand. You guys knew you were going to get one more science lesson from Clark, so there you go. Sunday evening, we drove down to Buena Vista and really got up into the mountains, not just looking off at them. And we were blessed to meet up with Antonio and Mike at that point. And yes, Antonio gave hugs. So, church family, Antonio does miss you. So thank you for the impact you've had in his life. Isaac Riddle shared that night about one way sometimes God asks us to do difficult things. And he shared about his sister living with disease and a body that does not cooperate. Monday morning had everyone up super early for whitewater rafting. And we had a great time on the river. Monday morning had 18 miles in front of us of class 1 through 4 rapids. And everyone really enjoyed the rafting, and I encourage you to ask the students about the fun they had rafting that day. I have to tell one story about this because I was in a boat with Sydney, and we got on the river, and we're literally 10 feet down, and the guy, we were in the front boat, and he wanted to kind of see how the rest of the boats work as they kind of stay together as a group. So he just had us paddle in a circle, and like I start hearing beside me, why are we doing this? Why are we backwards? And then we got, he went back around. She's like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore, right? And I'm like, I've been rafting. I know you go about half the river backwards. And so I'm like, okay, it'll come. By the end of it, she was like, bring on a class 4, let's go. So it was awesome. That night, Amy shared about the difficult path of living life with anxiety and panic. And it was actually very helpful for some of our kids. We had a lot of great talks with some of our kids that night. Tuesday, we packed everything we would need into backpacks and began our mountain trek into Mount Yale. According to the trail map, we hiked with our backpacks and everything on us into base camp. You ready for this? 2.3 miles, 1,000 feet in elevation gain, all right? Now, that might not seem like a lot if you're driving a vehicle. It's a lot when you're lugging stuff up the side of a hill. It took us a little over 2 hours, but man, what a hike it can be. The views you get is just truly incredible. There was crying. There was doubt. There was thoughts about mutiny by some, I know. But everyone did it, and we all made it to base camp, and we were very excited. There was laughing and silly games happening by sleeping time, and that night Pastor Mike shared about Daniel and his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You've probably heard of their funny names, and how in the midst of being kidnapped from their homeland and taken to another land, they did difficult things by not even giving in on some of the little things in life. And we shared that with the students about how sometimes there's little things in life that we just have to choose to honor God with. Mike challenged the students to think through who they spend most of their time with, and a lot of other of the little choices that make a big difference in our lives. Then we went to bed really early because we were going to get up early to do the ascent. I'll bring up another group before we talk about that. Isaac, Riddle, Logan, Ellery, Zoe, Travis, Witt, and Taylor. Come on up here. You gonna start us off?
I can do that. So, I learned a lot of things on this trip, and one of them was literally how to fall down a mountain. It's the truth. And I just got to point out, let me just unpack the scene. Morgan Cantola, you're right there. Okay. So let me just unpack what happened here. I'm rolling my ankle, and then I fall down this mountain, and I've got this heavy pack on me, so I'm like turtled out on the ground, right? And I'm looking around like surely someone is going to come to my aid and help me. And I look up, and Morgan is pointing and laughing. I'm like, hey, it is hard to find good help nowadays. Man, I tell you what, it ended up working out. And I'll tell you guys, I did learn a couple really great lessons on this trip, two of which were this right here. There's no situation in your life that God can't use for his good. And there's no situation in your life that you can't choose joy in. And I saw this most notably in this one day where we woke up at base camp, and it was gross. Like it was, and I'm going to just tell you guys, for like vacation, I am a hotel kind of guy, like see the sights from afar, okay, that's me. We woke up this one day at base camp, and it was cold, and it was rainy. We started climbing up this mountain, and as we're going, and we're huffing and puffing, I look around, and there are students that like literally had to stop and wipe tears away. And there were students that literally had to stop and walk off to the side and maybe even get a little sick. And I thought, oh man, we are in for the long haul here. But what's crazy is every time somebody had to stop and kind of recuperate, they kept going. Because they knew what was waiting for them, and they knew that God was by their side and he was strengthening them. I remember we were getting above the tree line on this one hike, and it was so bad. Like it was cold, it was freezing cold. I was in shorts. I don't know why I did that. But I was in shorts, it was cold, and it was starting to blow, and I thought, there's just no way we're going to make it. We heard from some folks that were up ahead of us that it was like 1 degree at the top of the mountain, and I thought, what are we getting into? And it starts blowing around, and I remember saying out loud, Lord, I have asked you for a lot this week, but could we just maybe have a little bit of sunshine? Just a little bit. And I think like 2 or 3 minutes later, was it, Austin? 2 or 3 minutes later, we look up at the top of a peak, and some sunshine comes out. And our bodies warm up, and the fog dissipates. And I thought, oh my goodness, we can do this again. And that was, in that moment, it was just this really cool opportunity where God spoke to me and said, Isaac, I've got this. And I've got this trip. It's not about you. It's about me. So there's that. One other thing, that same day, we got down to base camp, and it was still cold. It was still gross. I woke up from a nap. I walked outside my tent, and I instantly got wet. It was nasty, and I thought, oh, I'm cranky, right? I was in a little bit of a bad mood. But we walk out to base camp, and this is what I see. On one side of base camp, there's some kids that are laughing together, cooking meals, and serving one another. I look over at the other side of base camp, and there are kids laughing together and playing games. And I thought, how cool is that? Like in the midst of just some crazy situations, students were making the choice to choose joy, and God just showed up, and he worked through that. So there's a little of my trip experience.
My name is Whitney, and honestly, the hike was extremely hard for me. Oh my goodness, it was very hard. The oxygen was kicking my butt. But my favorite part was getting to walk or hike through Garden of the Gods because it was very green, and it was very cool to see what the landscape looked like versus the mountain. It was pretty cool.
My name is Travis, and my favorite part was either whitewater rafting or climbing up the mountain and like standing in the clouds.
Hi, my name is Zoe Marsman. My favorite part was whitewater rafting, which I definitely would not have said I was excited for at all. I was actually really scared for that, and I was really nervous.
She thought she was going to die.
I did think I was going to die. Many times, actually. I probably almost would have died if Clark would not have saved my life. So, but I was definitely really scared, but God blessed me with an amazing raft leader, and she was really big on the safety and the tucking the feet in the raft. So I also had a really amazing group to do that with. So thank you. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ellery, and my favorite part of the trip was definitely whitewater rafting as well, and seeing Clara almost die about 17 times. And I also enjoyed getting some fun science facts from Mr. K on the mountain.
My name is Taylor, and this was my last trip, so I figured I should probably say more than just my favorite part. So I was in one of the rental cars with Isaac, Brandon, Travis, and Sam, and it was an interesting ride. But the whole time we heard through Nebraska, like, you'll notice when we get to Colorado, like, you'll see the mountains, whatever. We get there, and it's just cornfields still. Like, there's no mountains, and we're like, okay, mountains don't exist. Like, they're not real. So then we wake up at the first KOA, and we wake up and we're like, oh my gosh, there's actually mountains. But then we realized, Mark didn't say, those were just foothills. So those were not the mountains, and we were like, well, if that's just foothills, what are we going to climb? Like, that is really high already, and mountains are way bigger. So then we finally get to the mountains, and me and Brandon noticed that there's clouds on top of the mountains, and we were like, oh my gosh, we want to climb in the clouds. So suddenly we added it to our bucket list that I had just started, and it was to walk through a cloud. So the whole way up the mountain, or the second day hiking, I just kept saying, Brandon, we got to get to the clouds. We have to make it. That's our only option now. And we made it to the clouds, so that was really, really cool, and the views were amazing.
So I'm Logan, and I would have to say my favorite part would probably be getting to the top of the mountain. Not climbing the mountain, that was really rough, but the views were pretty amazing, and I guess pictures really don't do justice because you're definitely on top of the world, but yeah.
If you'd like the rest of Isaac Riddle's story, come see me. Because when we got up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, you can go in the hallway. When we got up at 4:30 in the morning to start our ascent, I'm doing a count, and I'm like, man, we're missing one. And Clark came up and went, yeah, Isaac's still in the tent. Come on, get out here. So yes, Wednesday, precisely at 4:30. Dan, are you here? Dan Manzer? Dan? Pastor Mike woke us all up with your favorite bike trip wake-up call. Can you give it to us? Good morning, good morning, good morning, sunshine! It's what we heard at 4:30. Except Mike added a part. After that, he said, I hope you're feeling fine because we're going to take a climb. At a few minutes before 5, we began our nighttime peak, and we're wearing headlamps and carrying flashlights because it's still dark out. And we stayed together up to about 100, I'm sorry, I think I did that wrong. Yeah, about 115,000. We kept our group together because it was dark, and at that point, then it was kind of light enough that we could separate a little bit, and I wasn't worried about losing anyone. And we kind of split into two groups, the group that really wanted to go, that we kept having to put the brakes on, and the group that was really kind of struggling with some of the elevation sickness. And I had a little bit of it myself. You take 3 steps, and then you get black and white, like you're looking through a screen. And you take 4 more steps, then you can't hear anything. And so you start experiencing some of that elevation stuff. And you're wondering where the pockets of oxygen are, because you're sure there's some up here somewhere, but you just can't find them. The majority of the people ended up climbing and climbing and climbing and made it up to just around 13,000 feet. Mount Yell sits at about 14,200. So even the 13,000, that is, I really want to make sure you guys all know that you guys did a considerable climb. That is really high. Our smaller group, we pressed hard and made it almost just as high, sitting at just above tree level. We found an amazing rise off to the side that I made them go climb that. And when we got over there, they're like, okay, thank you. Yeah, we needed to do this. And we had a beautiful shot of snow on another peak parallel to us and literally birds flying underneath us. And that's just a sight to behold. It's really amazing to see. The other group, they made it up, and then the reason they stopped was Mike saw some dangerous clouds coming in. And when you're on a mountain, for those of you that don't know, that can turn into lightning storms very quickly. And so I actually looked up, and I told Kendra, I said, yeah, Mike's going to turn them around right about now. And sure enough, that's what happened. So they made their peak at about 13,000 for our top. After returning to base camp, we napped, we cooked, we napped again, we ate, we played games, shared stories about our assault on the mountain. And that night, Austin shared about the challenge of doing difficult things in our relationships. And he kind of really aimed this at the students of boyfriend, girlfriend. Following the plans God gives us about not being unequally yoked can be very difficult, but it's also for our own good. It's because God loves us that he gives us that. And he wants to bless us with that. So it's for our own good. We slept at base camp that night, and in the morning we headed for the vans, and that was such a wonderful thing when you get to the van. Going down is so much easier than going up. And except for people who kept landing on their butt because they kept sliding. But other than that, it was a great hike down. The kids were very excited to be heading toward, need I say it, toilets and showers. So come on up, Clay, Wes, Luke, Caden, Cantola, Sid, Clara, Josiah, Thomas, Caleb, and Austin. Come all the way over here. Clay, you're going to go first. Huh?
My name is Clay Shulo. My favorite part was water rafting and watching Jacob fall out. And then me and Wesley tried pulling him back in, but we were laughing so hard, so the raft guy had to come and pull him in.
Good morning, guys. My name is Sydney, and this trip was just, like, it was so much fun. I've wanted to climb a mountain since I was, like, so little, and this was so cool to be able to do. And yes, I was very scared for rafting. I did not like going backwards, but we made it through, and it probably was my favorite part. But also, I really liked how when we were climbing the mountain, God really spoke to me, and he really just showed me, like, how big he is. Like, if he can create over, like, a 14,000 mountain, like, that, like, my problems don't seem so small, like, don't seem so big anymore. Like, it was just so cool, and he really spoke to me in that way.
Hi, my name is Wesley, and my favorite part was probably whitewater rafting and the lunch that they gave us. 'Cause it was the best sandwiches they've ever.
Okay, I do got to give him credit for this. The ham was like this thick in the sandwich. So.
Don't forget the bacon.
And the bacon.
My name is Clara, and my favorite part was whitewater rafting and making it to the top of the mountain.
I'm Josiah, and my favorite part was probably just making it up to the 13,000-foot part, and then just looking out and seeing the mountains below us. And when the cloud came over us, we could barely see any of them. And then when it cleared, we could just see all of them again. It was really pretty.
My name is Caden, and my favorite part was seeing everything through my own eyes and not just looking up a picture on my phone.
I'm Luke, and I had two different favorite parts. My first was the van rides, because you get to know people a little differently when you're packing 18 people in a 15-passenger van. Things happen. And then my other favorite part is on the mountain. We got up super early, and first of all, when you start in the dark, and then the sky just starts to turn blue, and then you look off to the east, and there's the clouds turning pink because the sun is rising. And then you get up even higher, and you're looking above you, and you're seeing the clouds, and you're thinking, that's going to be cold. And you get in the cloud, and then we were up there, and then we said, Mike, can we go just a little further? And we went a little further, and we said, Mike, can we go just a little further? And so one more time, he let us go up to 13,000 feet, and he said, all right, this is our top. And we were up there, and we were cold, and we were in a cloud, and it was not that great. And then all of a sudden, the clouds cleared all at once, and the sun, we looked up, and the sun was right in the center of the peak right above us. And it was just beautiful.
Hi, my name is Thomas, and my favorite part was probably being tent partners with Sam, especially when he started screaming about how his legs weren't working, and I thought he was paralyzed, but really he was just cramping up. That was pretty funny.
Glad we took you all the way to Colorado to experience that.
Hi, my name is Caleb. My favorite part was being in the cloud. It's really unfortunate we didn't get to go to the top because we all wanted to make it to the top, but Mike did make a good call. It was really cold up there, and yeah, I like being in the cloud and watching Caden get pushed off of the raft by Tori because he was bullying her.
Hey guys, my name's Austin. I was blessed to be able to go as a leader on this trip. I think it was 12 years ago. I was 18 years old and went on this trip, the same mountain. I tell you what, it is a lot easier when you're 18 years old, rather than being 30 years old. The first day we hiked up the mountain, I was able to lead with Amy with the girls, and they kicked my butt. They were just pushing me, and they were just going. I remember we stopped for a few girls, and I blamed it on them, I think. It was mostly me. And we were waiting on the groups behind us, and it was Amy was behind us. And I remember Amy saying, just go ahead, we'll catch up to you guys. And I was trying to tell the girls we can go, but they didn't want to go. They wanted to wait for like the whole group. And so I was just sitting there kind of like, okay, but Amy told me to keep you guys moving. And I think it was like a group of like 8 or 10 of them were just like, no, we're not moving until we see the whole group. So that was a really cool moment. Also, there was mutiny when I told them base camp was right at this point, and then we found out base camp wasn't at that point. We had about, I think, 150 feet of elevation to go still. But also, whatever the van bus's name is, I think that thing needs to be talked to, because that thing does not want to cooperate with us, it seems like, on this trip. But yeah, this trip we climbed mountains, or climbed a mountain, but we faced a ton of different mountains. It was incredible to see just how the kids responded, how we responded as leaders when we were faced against some pretty tough things that we had in our midst. And then also, the cool takeaway for me is every one of these kids has a mountain that they have to face. Every kid has a different mountain that they have to face. We were able to speak our testimonies, like Amy shared hers, and it was amazing to see the kids after she shared come and talk to us leaders. I know a few of them came and talked to me about some of the things that resonated when Amy spoke truth to them, and they're like, man, I'm struggling with this. So what I would encourage you as parents, and even like as a church family, is ask the difficult questions, ask these kids how they're doing, because they're facing some big things in their life, just like you and me. So that was a really cool opportunity to do that. So, but anyways, it was a great trip. So thank you for your support and your prayers. We made it home.
Okay. Sometimes the difficult thing God's asked us to do is simply trust. When you're in charge of 37 people making it across most of the U.S., you're going to have some worry. Your mind goes to what things can go wrong. And when plans go wrong and vans break down and plans go awry, when mountain weather does not cooperate and your body gets elevation sickness, when relationships don't work out as you planned and relatives get sick and divorces happen and people are hurt, God says, trust me. Not only if you understand, but even when you don't understand, trust God through difficult things. As we got to the vans, unloaded all our gear at the park, ate the best tasting chicken. Something about coming off a mountain, whatever meal it is, it's going to be the best thing you had in a long time. There were some that were very disappointed that we didn't get to the top, to the 14.2, and I understand that. Others were very happy that we turned around. And still others were just happy to see hotel showers coming soon. After everyone cleaned up that night, we enjoyed a buffet, and then we heard from Clark. And he shared several nuggets of truth. My personal favorite was about letting go of things that we want sometimes. And they're not necessarily bad things, but sometimes God asks us to do a very difficult thing. Give up something that's good for something that's better. And it takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of trust. If you have a chance, ask Mr. K about the monkey story. So there you go. Let's call up anyone I missed. Tess, Isaac, Cantola, Caitlin, Caden, Marsman, Kylie, Amy, and Morgan, and anybody if I didn't get your name down. Come on up here.
I'm Tess, and this is my last trip, and I've gone on all 4 of my high school trips, so I feel like I have enough experience to say with 100% confidence, this was a trip like no other. Obviously I can't stand here and share all the memories that I'm going to take away from this trip, because we'd be sitting here for hours, but I will give you some of the highlights. Max capacity in a 15-passenger van and over max capacity multiple times was very entertaining. Jamming to Disney songs for several hours last night on the way here. Thanks, Luke. learning that you can, in fact, shove 6 people into a 2-person tent and play Kemps at the same time. I mean, it was much warmer when we did that, so there's your reasoning for that. And yeah, finding the best sandwich place in Colorado Springs was, those of you that went, Tori, it was a very good sandwich place. And those are just a few of my highlights, but the things I'm going to remember most were the people that I did it with. And I feel like this trip even taught me more the importance of having a strong community around you to encourage and embrace you, and I think that's something I'm really going to bring into my college life next year. So that's what, I think that was my top thing of this trip.
Hi, I'm Caden, and I think the coolest part about this trip was climbing the mountain, and when you looked across, you could see Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and Lake Superior.
In the snow.
In the snow.
We weren't that
Got
high up.
really good vision.
My name is Isaac Catola. This is my 3rd trip so far, and I have to say this is my favorite. I really, really enjoyed this one. It was nice. It was nice because my summer has been super chaotic so far between juggling 2 different part-time jobs, and it was nice to kind of just take a week off and relax on that and connect with people. That was really, really fun. And also just focus more on my relationship with God and just dig deeper into that. So that was just a really nice break, and I think every trip is good for that reason, just taking a little bit of time off just to stop, reconnect, and focus on what's important. I also really enjoyed at the KOA in Colorado Springs, there was this nice rock overlook where you got to climb up and you saw all these amazing mountains and this amazing view. Unfortunately, we realized that the barbed wire fence that was before that was there for a reason. It was private property. Oh, that was Buena Vista? Okay, that was amazing. But yeah, don't cross the barbed wire fence. It was a great view, but they didn't really like us up there.
I'm Caitlin, and I'm just going to preface this. I don't know exactly how I'm going to say this, but we climbed up the mountain to base camp for about 2 hours, right? And it was probably one of the most difficult hikes I've ever been on, and I've been on a few. But it felt really difficult to begin with, not counting the packs and not counting going up in elevation and not being able to breathe. And it was 2 hours of struggling. I probably got maybe 15 minutes in and I started crying. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it even to base camp, much less the top of the mountain. But I think I was reminded of Deuteronomy 31:8, which I actually have to read. It says, "Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you." And it really spoke to me, and it really speaks to my experience now that even when I was crying, even when I felt I was going to be sick, even when I felt I couldn't go on, God was there leading the way. And not only was he there leading my way, but he put incredible leaders like Kendra and Amy in front of me to just guide the way and push me on and encourage me so that I could, in fact, make it to base camp and I could make it above the tree line.
Hi, my name's Kylie, and my favorite part was probably the top of the spot that we hiked to, the very top. I didn't make it all the way to the top because my elevation sickness is really bad, but the view was really cool, and I'm glad I got to go on this trip and climb the mountain and just see everything.
Hi, I'm Morgan. Isaac, I'm sorry for laughing at you. I have to explain myself. So when he slid or skid, he got the nickname Skid Mark because he does skid quite a bit on the rocks. And there's rock that he fell over was probably about that big. And I turned around and he just completely turtled it. And thankfully Uncle Clark was there to help pick him up. But it was quite funny because the sound effects were really funny. So I would have to say, so if you think about it, the morning which we woke up for summit, it was dark, it was cold, we're all wet, and it was like, how are we going to do this? And I heard leaders come up saying, this kid just puked, this kid just puked. Like, we had a lot of kids puking. And we all woke up with like raging headaches. They were horrible. But we made the trek. And as we kept moving, one leader comes up, this kid just puked. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, how are we going to get these kids up this mountain? And, well, us leaders are feeling not so hot. But as we started trekking, the sun started coming through. And this girl right here, Kylie, she is a trooper. She puked a lot. Not just a little, but a lot. And my mom will tell you, I do not do throw up well. And the first time I saw her throw up, I was like, it's okay, it's okay. But God drew me to her for some reason. I don't know why, but about the 5th time that she was puking, I came up to her and I was rubbing her back as she was throwing up. And I'm like, girl, it's okay. We've got this. She was crying. It was coming out her nose. And I'm sorry, not to embarrass you or anything. But, like,
See how close you get with everybody on a trip like this?
She, like, was crying to me. She's like, Morgan, like, I don't know if she said my name, but she was like, it hurts now. And that's the point when she started to get acid. And I was like, girl, you just got to drink water so then you can throw up water and not that, and it won't hurt. And at that time, I was like, I think she's going to stop. And we are almost there, which really, we weren't really almost there. We still had quite a trek. And so she started drinking water. And she drank water so she could continue to climb instead of stopping. And that was a huge testimony to me, because it's like how much pain she was in physically. And I don't know if she had a headache. She had a lot of stuff going on. But God just showed me, like, you go through so much pain in life, but you do stuff to get through that pain. And her, like, God was just showing me through her drinking water, it's the little stuff that you have to do just to get through that pain for that time. And so we made it. You made it really far. So don't say you didn't make it very far. She made it really far. So Kendra and Doug, great job raising a solid girl. Well, 2 girls. And parents, she's not the only one. We had a lot of kids throwing up, but yet they continued. And they continued up the mountain. And we couldn't really breathe. But I told some of the leaders, but so our internet really doesn't work on the mountain actually at all. And then, so we made it to the summit and we got back down. I was laying in my tent and I was napping and my phone vibrated. I'm like, that's weird. It shouldn't have vibrated. But I just dismissed it and didn't look at it until later. And on my phone, it says the verse of the day from the Bible app, but I will sing of your strength. In the morning, I will sing of your love. For you are my fortress, my refuge in times of trouble. Psalm 59:16. That shouldn't have came through at all. And that was after we made it to the top and came back down. And it's just, in those times of trouble, how often are we going to God rather than going to the world? And that was just a huge testimony. He used you for me. And because I've been going through a season of anxiety and struggle, and it's just like, are we going to God for our struggle? And another thing I wanted to say, sorry I'm making this a little long, is I want to challenge the church. We have a lot of kids in our youth group. Yes, Mark has a job as a youth pastor to connect them to our church, but how many people of our church are going up to these kids saying, hi, my name is this. I don't think we've met yet. What is your story? I want to challenge you guys with that, because these kids had an amazing week, so I want to challenge you guys to ask them about their week, and if they just say it's good, go deeper. Because yes, ask them for their elevator speech. And just ask them the hard things in life, because I just, like, as a student, it's not to say I wasn't connected to the church, because I was, but how often are we trying to connect our students who are also the body of Christ to the church? So we are all a body of Christ, and I don't know if you guys heard the Casting Crowns song, If We Are the Body. We all can't work in unison if we don't have part of the body. So, and God calls us to be like children. So I just want to challenge you guys to dig into these kids, because they're going to teach you something too, because every trip I've been on, Zoe Marsman in middle school, I don't know, I haven't told you that, but God had Zoe pray for me for an incident that was happening months in advance, and I didn't even realize it. So get into these kids' lives. They're incredible individuals, and they got things they're struggling with too, not just us. So that's all I got.
Good morning. My name is Amy, and this was not my first trip to Colorado, so I have a little bit of a different perspective. This was probably the worst of my 3 trips. It was very cold. It was very rainy. And if Mark ever has the same slogan, I will not go. I will just run. I will run away, just so you know. I will lead the mutiny. What God's been teaching me lately in my life through probably the past year is to be willing to let go of control. And this trip was a big one for that. And in the midst of letting go of control, God's been challenging me to look for Him and His presence in the midst of my loss of control. And so I know Mark shared this with you, but I just want to talk to you about the day that the bus broke down. And just all the small little things that I choose in my life to not chalk up to coincidence, but chalk up to God showing up in the little ways. The first thing I would like you to know is that we were on I-80 and the speed limit's 75 in the middle of Nebraska. It's awful, people. It's awful. Not the speed limit, just Nebraska. I'm sorry. It's awful. And Mark was and he didn't plan this because I know he just got off as soon as he heard things clunking around in the engine. But it happened to be that it was at the top of a hill. And when he turned those hazard lights on, you could see them from probably 3/4 of a mile away. And so people were able to get over. We didn't have very many people staying in the right-hand lane. We were off on the right-hand shoulder. We had a lot of people. They would just get over. And I was like, Lord, thanks so much that we were on the top of the hill. Because there aren't very many hills in Nebraska, and we happened to find one. And then the next thing, we were between 2 exits, probably 2 miles to one, 2 miles forward, 2 miles back. And you guys, again, Nebraska, the chances of that are really, really slim. We could have been in the middle of stinking nowhere. I mean, we were, but there could have been no exits. And as it was, we were able to start shuttling kids. There was a little town about 10 miles away, and it had a really nice park. It had a tank, which some children climbed on. It had some play equipment that the children climbed on. You saw those pictures. That's what they were riding. And they handled themselves really, really well. We crammed kids in, and I took a couple round trips, and we got all the kids off, and I made my way into a very crusty-looking repair shop and talked to some men who were a little bit scary-looking, but turned out to be really nice. Like, these guys were really nice. They talked to Mark on the phone, and the guy was a diesel repair shop, and I thought, well, maybe if he works on trucks, he knows something about this beast that we're driving. And you talked to him, right? And he was like, yeah, I'll talk to your husband. And he told him, he was like, you're going to the right place. This is the best place for you. There's 7 repair shops in town, and there's parts stores. And he's like, you're on the right track. So it was just one of those things where it was out of my comfort zone, first of all, because I don't feel comfortable in a repair shop. And they were very crusty. So, but they were kind. Crusty does not equal unkind.
I still hope they're watching this video.
Yep. Okay. So then the other thing, once the tow truck man, it came really fairly quickly. He was there within probably an hour of the initial explosion on the highway. And I know Mark said this, but we were like, what are we going to do? There's a trailer, there's a ginormous minibus, and this guy handled all of it and charged us for a price of a car, charged for the tow. And just that kindness that God was like, look, you know what? Here's the kindness of somebody coming alongside you and taking care of your problem. We found another park for the teenagers. And they, again, handled themselves really well. We learned a new game from Isaac. We played a whole lot of Poison Dart Frog this week. You can ask your child about it. It's a really lame game, but we had a good time. There was a lot of Are we laughing at Isaac teaching us a lame game? Oh, it's not lame. Oh, sorry. Okay, we had fun, but it was, I mean, seriously, if you go home and tell your parents about it, they're going to be like, really? You did that? That was goofy.
For like 4 hours.
For hours. So really, kids with good attitudes. And I went to the repair shop with Mark, and Kendra and Morgan and Isaac shuttled kids to lunch. And when I walked into the repair shop, the guy, I don't know if he was the owner, but he was the guy that was working with you, he was calling around for us to see if he could find a rental van for us. Like, he didn't have to do that. It was just really, really cool. And then once he got busy, he was like, okay, try this place, try this place, try this place. And we finally got to the point where they were like, we for sure, we don't have this belt. That's our first hiccup. And so that's when we knew we had to figure out something else so that we could actually get back on the road. And we called a lady in the same town. First of all, again, you're in the middle of Nebraska. Who rents vehicles in the middle of Nebraska? And in the same town, there was a lady, and she was like, well, I don't have a 15-passenger van for you. And I think Clark said, maybe we could do 2 cars. And so I called her back, and she's like, yep, I have 2 cars available. And she said, like, her website, she closes at noon. It was like 11:58. And I said, I don't think we'll make it. And she goes, we're here till 2 or 3. Just come on in. Like, just the super kindness of people was just God taking care of us. I mean, the last cool thing I have to say is when we actually got to that place, this lady had a prayer taped on the bottom of her computer screen about being a blessing to someone. And I thought, this is really neat, Lord. You're totally using this lady's prayer to meet the need that we have, and she was a blessing to us. And it was a really cool answer to prayer for her prayer, and our prayer. So,
Okay, to give you a little bit more description of Nebraska, Kansas is its twin. And to give you, it's Ugly Twin. So if you guys seen the movie Twister, our gang looked like that. We got a bus, a trailer, and 2 15-passenger vans going down dirt roads, well, and cars. And Austin and Mark pull up to this construction dude, and we're looking for gas because we're running out quick.
Like 10 miles.
Yeah. Yep. And Austin rolls the window down, asks this construction worker, hey, where's the closest place for gas? And he just laughs. So,
Literally head back.
yeah, it just laughs at us. So, that is a great description.
Yeah, if you want more detail on where there is no gas in America, I can give you some map details on that. Friday and Saturday, we're pretty much just driving home and exploring Kansas and hanging out with students in the vehicles and at the hotel at night. That night, the Friday night, I did share with the kids our last time to talk together, all together as a group. And I kind of talked through them through the story of David and Goliath. And sometimes sometimes mountains don't come in the form of a mountain that you climb up. Sometimes it's a giant that you actually have to battle. And to remember that God wants to help you with that, and he never leaves us. So that's kind of where we went with that. I want to take a minute and just personally thank every leader that went. Thank you so much for doing this trip. I want to thank the parents who trusted us with their kids to go get lost in Kansas and not find gas. I want to thank those who made the rummage sale fundraiser happen and all those who donated items and came and bought items. That's how we pay for this trip. Lastly, I need to thank the students, you guys. This is probably one of the most difficult trips we had as far as just logistics and stuff that happened. And honestly, there was never an issue where you guys were grumping or complaining that I heard. Maybe you were behind the van, I don't know. But you guys handled it really, really well. So thank you for that. Go spend some time asking these students some questions about their experience. And if nothing else, at least talk to Thomas about the fish flops that he bought. Because I thought he was going to wear them today, but he didn't. Let me pray with you, and we will let you go. And hopefully you do take a couple minutes to talk to some of these guys in their blue shirts. Father God, thank you. Thank you for a wonderful trip where you kept pointing us to the fact that you do ask us to do difficult things. But you're there with us when you do. And Lord, I pray that that is a truth that you'll not just remind us of when we think of mountains, but anytime we have a tough time. Anytime something looks difficult and hard and you're asking us to do it, I pray that you remind us that we can climb mountains, we can defeat giants with your help. Lord, I ask you would just bless these guys, give them a great rest of their summer. Lord, give us an awesome week this week, reminding ourselves of you when we're struggling. In your name, amen. Kids, go give your